Hello everyone, welcome to Cinema Magic. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe as we recap the 2021 American action thriller movie, Last Man Down, directed by Fonsu Ng. We'll delve into an intense action thriller that promises suspense and heart-pounding moments. Buckle up as we explore this gripping film's dramatic twists and turns. The film opens with a dramatic sequence in which Special Forces soldier John Wood is restrained to a chair and questioned by his commander, Stone. John's wife was also abducted so that Stone could use her as a weapon against John. Only 5,000 people lived in the Westburg area during the pandemic. 1,500 were still receiving treatment in the nearby hospitals. At the same time, the remaining 3,000 had already perished from the fatal infection, which indicates that 500 individuals were still wandering the region. And Stone thought that John had purposefully removed them from military supervision. John, however, defended himself by claiming that those vulnerable individuals had already left by the time his group arrived. Stone seemed unsatisfied with John's response, though. Then Stone snatches John's wife and points a gun at her. John attempted to extricate himself in an attempt to save his wife, but he was regrettably unable to do so. He ultimately saw his wife pass away in front of him. After 3 years, John moved to a remote area in the woods, where he mourned the loss of his wife and lived a lonely life. In addition to the recollection of his deceased spouse, Stone's psychotic countenance and the faces of all the other troops who slaughtered the afflicted innocents without hesitation continue to torment him, which greatly enrages John and prompts him to resist the special force to protect the populace. However, he was later viewed as a traitor. Having lost his spouse, he was labeled as a betrayer. It got worse when Stone revealed that John's wife was diseased and that shooting her was the proper decision. Since Stone had never tested her, John was understandably furious about this. As the only person John knew who was highly immune to the virus, Stone was also questioned about John. Consequently, John was taken to a research institution to serve as the scientist's study subject until they realized it was a wrong choice. Since John has excellent strength, he disappeared after slickly making his way out of the research building. Returning to John's apartment, he sat close to a bonfire to warm himself. The sudden emergence of an unidentified woman from the woods surprised him. She was hurt and dizzy, and then she went out. John then came to her aid as soon as he saw that. The anonymous woman was surprised to wake up in a stranger's home the following day. John then persuaded the woman that he was going to assist her and that he meant no harm to her. To avoid any deadly infections, he added, there was a bullet in her body that needed to be removed. Since John was the only person nearby to assist her at the moment, she was left with no alternative. However, she identified herself as Maria before John removed the bullet from her. John quickly removed the bullet from her back after that. John was abruptly confronted by some unexpected visitors, the military in charge of monitoring the infected when she was inside the home. Until they push their way into his house, John first pays them no attention, which infuriates him and causes him to erase them all. And when he went inside his home to see how Maria was doing, he saw that Maria had already conquered the soldiers. John then handed her a mop and told her to mop up the blood on the floor to prevent her from asking more questions. As for the military headquarters, Granite and Feldspat were the two individuals waiting for their subordinates to come back with Maria. However, they sent out another squad when they failed to find them. Now, in a foul temper, Granite threw down the gauntlet with a few of her subordinates. She defeated them all because, as it turned out, she was far more potent than them. Adam contacted her shortly after the combat because she had defeated the troops meant to be his subordinates. Back to John, who starts to worry since the special forces found his hideout. And he also drew suspicions about Maria, as it was too much of a coincidence for her to be there that night. But then, seeing no sign of danger from her, John decided to let her stay a bit longer. They were getting closer and closer, and he started to open up to her about his late wife. The next day, John set up a defense scheme, anticipating if the special forces decided to send more squads there. He built a sandbag bunker and a trench for the shootout, sealed his house, and prepared himself for a who-knows-when war. After an all-day preparation, John and Maria were then seated near a bonfire for dinner. And in the middle of their conversation, Maria suddenly mentioned a vaccine, and she told John that she was the vaccine for the deadly virus. She ran away after knowing that the vaccine would be misused, while she wanted the vaccine to be used as intended to cure the people. Hearing that, John suddenly changed his mind and refused to help her any further, for it was too risky for him. But Maria then begged him to help her, for the sake of the people and to avenge John's wife's death. Hearing that, John then decided to work together with Maria because, however, he still felt the need to get revenge on the people who betrayed him and to avenge his wife's death. John then immediately prepared the weapons for their war. While he cleaned his pistol, he asked Maria about her fighting skills the other day. She then told John that she had been in a robbery before and was being imprisoned for it. The following day, they practiced shooting, and John instructed Maria, who had never used a gun before. The soldiers returned to John's house that day. Similar to earlier, they had yet to learn that the lumberjack they would meet was not your typical guy. The soldiers then stealthily followed John, supposing he was unprepared, as he was ready to enter his shed. However, John succeeded in eliminating two of the soldiers, which terrified the lone survivor and kidnapped Maria. Assuming John would not pursue it in any way, John, though, was ready. At last, Maria could escape, and John emerged from the shed, brandishing his bow, and he immediately dispatched the last soldier. John was sure that Stone had prepared a second round of attacks, so he invited Maria to get even more ready after that one. Indeed, Stone was getting ready for his second wave at that same moment. In the meantime, John and Maria were getting ready for the Special Forces welcome party, which included everything from firearms and bows to explosives. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this movie, hit the like and subscribe button to catch all our future movie summaries. Trust me, you want to ensure you get what's coming next. To ensure that the soldiers who followed that trail would perish from burns, they also set up a gasoline trap. John went so far as to paint his face. John quickly instructed Maria to get them some water. However, she was taken aback when the Special Forces squad pointed their weapons at her from behind as she was going to gather her bucket on the riverbank. And that's where Maria was able to get caught. However, John killed the Special Forces squad by surprise when he came. After that, John and Maria returned to the house to keep an eye out and ensure no intruders were sneaking up on them. The moment the attackers made it to his home, John shot them. However, it turns out that Feldspat had lived, and he rushed straight to Stone to inform him of his condition. Stone misjudged John Wood because he was still unaware he was up against him. John and Maria, in the meantime, continued to rid their territory of the never-ending Special Forces soldiers. However, while John was still dealing with the other intruders, Maria was unexpectedly attacked by a female soldier, and she was forced to defend herself. However, rather than engaging the female soldier in hand-to-hand combat, she killed her with an intelligent use of an assault weapon. However, Stone ordered Granite and her henchmen to kill the lumberjack. One by one came Stone's underlings, but neither John nor Maria was scared more so than the former, since she knew they would not murder her. Finally, he heard about Stone's overrun squads, which made him uneasy and intrigued about the true identity of the lumberjack. In the meantime, every tactic used by John and Maria to defend themselves worked well, and they eliminated numerous Special Forces personnel. Upon eliminating the final unit, John instructed Maria to conclude the conflict before dusk, as fighting in the dark would be detrimental to them. Stone became nervous since none of his subordinates came back. All he had left was one squad, and they chose to approach the house once everything had calmed down. When they weren't expecting it, Maria unexpectedly showed up and shot them when they discovered a cellar containing their friend's remains. As John cleared the area in the woods, Feldspat ambushed him unexpectedly from behind. And then there was a bloody brawl amongst them. And in that fight, John lost. On the other hand, Maria was cornered by Stone's newly arriving subordinates. Felt's passage in the tunnel swiftly took Maria, who was injured, by surprise. The news of Feldspat's escape with his primary target, Maria, reached Stone shortly afterwards. Shot his subordinate out of the blue, Stone lost his mind. Maria had to be captured immediately, and Stone was furious, and kills Feldspat, the betrayer, and John alike. It turned out that John was still alive and had ambushed Feldspat while he was stuck in the tunnels and desperately searching for a way out. This provoked another vicious altercation between them. John became insane from the fight, and Feldspat had to acknowledge John's strength. Maria gets up shortly after and asks John to leave the scene.
But Granite and her goons get up before he can, forcing them to engage in yet another gunfight. When John's ammunition ran out, they decided to seek a hiding place. They were able to use a secret room as a makeshift hideout. However, John urged Maria to shelter in the small room alone and decided to battle the special forces alone. At first, Maria declined, but John persisted. Then, John left immediately to find a way out, only to find that Stone and his henchmen were waiting for him when he had just surfaced. Stone approached John and inquired about Maria's whereabouts. John later revealed to him that he had already killed her. Stone was not easily duped because he was fully aware that the person who had come before him, his former colleague, would never murder an innocent person. Subordinates were then given the command by Stone to torture John and force him to open his mouth. However, John's lips were firmly closed. Exasperated, Stone gave his lieutenants the order to execute John by shooting him. John, however, responded by calling him a coward. John got him into a one-on-one altercation, which Stone consented to. Stone then spoke loudly as usual, convinced that he could easily defeat John once he appeared defeated. However, that being said, John demonstrated that the word death was not in his lexicon. Then, in that fight, Stone was killed. And as it happens, Granite is grateful to John for Stone's passing. She had grown weary of Stone's grand pronouncements and had wanted to be the leader all along. Nevertheless, she went ahead and killed John. Just as she was ready to fire him, Maria materialized out of nowhere, holding 2 grenades in each hand, and declared that if they killed John, they would pull the safety lever. Maria then decided to turn herself in and instructed Granite to stop killing John. As Maria was the Special Forces' primary goal, Granite consented and whisked her away with them. She was realizing that John had vowed to locate and save Maria. The action then cuts to a flashback, in which Maria is holding 3 blood samples and has written John a letter expressing her desire to donate her blood to help those in need. The film then comes to a close. It appears that we will have to wait for the follow-up. How will this story unfold? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and hit the bell for updates on upcoming recaps. If there's a movie you'd like us to review, let us know below. Until next time, this is Cinema Magic.